Challenge runs have become a huge part of the Soulsborne games. They're the kind of games that just lend themselves for the wildest challenges and most creative runs possible. But I've noticed something about them. They almost all have to do with combat. How about the other major aspect of these games? Exploration. Open worlds are generally praised for you being able to reach every end of the map, and some of the best ones you can do completely on foot. So let's put that to the test, shall we? Can you become an Elden Lord without fast traveling whatsoever? For our ground rules, the biggest no-no will be opening the map and warping via any of the Sites of Grace, obviously, as this is the game's main method of fast traveling. I will also not allow a few other things, such as the blue light that takes you to the entrances of dungeons when you beat the boss. I will have to walk out of the dungeon backwards. I will not allow explicit abuse of the Sites of Grace, nor Stakes America death respawn, the Memory of Grace item, or even reloading the game to return to now inaccessible grounds. I will demonstrate what I mean when a good example arises. Events which warp you will be allowed, but if I have no means of getting back to a place where I can make progress unless via fast travel, it will be game over, which will become relevant very shortly. That's it for the rules. Let's get started. As stated, letting endgame events warp you is allowed, so there's no issue with the Grafted Scion segment. I opted for letting the Scion kill me since that's the most explicit cutscene with the Fade to Black. Totally not because I can't beat him or anything, nope. The mini tutorial in the Cave of Knowledge is a good way to showcase how we're going to need to consider choices going forward. To enter this cave, you need to drop down a ledge with no clear way to get back up from the start. So before making the potential dooming choice of dropping down here, I had to recreate the dungeon in my head and remember that it does loop back up to let you leave. In this one occasion it works out, but it won't always be the case. After reaching Limgrave proper, of course I immediately went to get Torrent. It already normally is beneficial to do so to travel around faster, but doubly so in this run if I can't fast travel at all. Now it'll be a little while before this conundrum becomes relevant, but I think it's important to discuss now that we met up with Melina. Do you recall the option where she offers to warp you to the Round Table Hold? This is perfectly valid. She's the one that takes you there instead of fast traveling yourself. So there's not an issue with taking this on our rule set. At face value, once we're there, how do we make our way out? If we warp to the Round Table Hold, we'd be stuck there, as there's no way to leave without fast traveling. Now for the most part, that's not a big issue. It's not like you need to go there to beat the game. But do you recall a certain useful NPC that resides there? Yeah, we can't use Hugh to upgrade our weapons or change affinity and stuff like that. Now before you panic, there is the one anvil in the Church of Ele that we already passed by. We can use that for now, but only to upgrade a weapon to +3 normal path, and I think also 3 for summer path. We'll worry about the rest later. But that means I should pick out a weapon and use my upgrade materials carefully, as it'd be a big hassle to upgrade it, and I can't buy more smithing stones at the round table, so theoretically I can run out of materials outside of farming. So that's exactly what I decided to do next. My weapon of choice for the playthrough was the Bloodhound Fang. Perhaps a bit of a boring option, but I've personally not used it very much, and it's a strong weapon in the early game that I could potentially carry to the end of the game. That's not to say I can't have other weapons on the side too, we'll take it as we go. I should mention I'm writing this script as I do the playthrough, so I'm essentially just as blind as y'all while watching this video. As I went to the Fang, I picked up this Somber 1 along the way to slap it on right away. I also went to get the Physic Mix and Sacred Tear near the forest, and do all the Blight stuff in order to get a Somber 2 from him alongside the Fang. This alone already took more running around than I would have preferred, since I had to talk to Kale for the snap gesture, and then return once more to the forest to trigger Blight, but it was certainly worth it for the early upgrades. I did also pass by the Shifa River well, and I considered going down, but there's less incentive to go there now, since getting the Grace down there now is pointless. I'd have to come back on foot later on anyway. As I was doing that, I also had not only my first death, but first and only loss of progress. As I was returning to Blythe, I went ahead and went to Fort Hythe for the Golden Seed, this cookbook, and was going to get the medallion just in case it's needed later. And as I was mostly running around, I got surrounded inside this room, and well, I'm sure you can guess how that went. I forgot to get the Grace in this area, so I had to go back from Akio South. From there I got Blythe, went to Darrowell, and went ahead and summoned Blythe for the fight. I won't be making a habit of summoning, but I didn't want to risk not getting the Summer 2. From there I was decently close to Weeping Peninsula, so while I'm here, I decided to do a quick run there, because there's a few annoyingly key items here that I should get eventually anyway. The main thing I went to get were the Sacred Tears. There's 3 of them here, so while I'm in the area, I figured I should get them. After I got the first one, I did also went ahead and fought the Earth Tree Avatar here for the Bubble tier and the Regent tier. It was a little rough because I still couldn't wield the Bloodhound Fang, so all I had was my unupgraded dagger. But I fought plenty of Asylum Demons in my day, I knew I'd get it. After that, I was thankfully able to wield the Fang now. I went ahead and got the other tiers from there. As tempting as it was to get the Blessed Dude Talisman, it would be a death sentence since you can't warp back without cheating, so we'll just wait until Lindale. After that, I went to get the map of the area and this golden seed, and since I was near Morn Castle, I decided to give it a look. Instantly as I was there, I realized I had to shake off the habit of sending the elevator back down because I would need them to leave the area every time. There wasn't anything in particular that I needed here, but there was some smithing stones that could be useful later on, and the runes at this level don't hurt. And oh, that's not good. See, I suspected Castle Morn might be a problem, but I did have to come and verify, and alas, to me it looks like there would be no way to get back up once you drop down this ledge, aside from warping. I went into a different character to verify, and yeah, looks like it'd be a dud. There's not even a blue light travel point after killing the boss or anything. They just expect you to warp away. From here on, at the end of every major area, we'll be breaking down the challenges which are impossible to go through with this challenge, in case you'd be interested in doing something similar. That said, I'll also include a small timestamp at the bottom left, in case you prefer figuring out these dungeons yourself and don't want to get spoiled. So let's briefly take a look at the dungeons in Weeping Peninsula, since we're already done here. Earthborth Cave has a pit where you have to drop down with seemingly no way back up. I even referenced the Future Press guide to verify, and yep, I was right. The boss is the Rune Bear, and the Spelldrake Talisman is what it drops, so that'll be inaccessible. And that's it for Weeping actually. I did get jump scared exploring Tombsworth Cave. I thought I almost fell into a pit I wouldn't be able to get out of for a brief second, but I had already found the fog gate, so I knew it was safe to drop down. Because you're blocked from fast traveling before killing the boss in dungeons, it makes sense that it'll be rare that they'll deploy a level that would block you from backtracking without dying, but already finding one level is definitely a little scary. We'll have to tread carefully going forward. That said, if I do happen to miss a dungeon where you are blocked from backtracking by the end of the playthrough, do feel free to let me know in the comments. Now going back to Limgrave, and finally upgrading your weapon a bit, well, there's not really anything else I wanted or needed here. So let's quickly go to the areas where you can't walk out of. The only one I found was High Road Cave, which is very obvious from the start. This dungeon has the Guardian Golem at the end, and drops the Blue Dancer Charm, which I wouldn't have minded having actually. Oh well. Also look at these plays with the Bloodhound Fang. Ooh! Okay, I see why people like this weapon a bit now. Outside of the obvious. Okay, now onto Stormvale Castle. Margaret didn't really stand a chance with a +2 Bloodhound Fang, so not much to comment on there. After him is when Melina told me about the Brown Table Hold, so obviously I had to decline her. And well, that prompt is just permanently gonna be in the Grace menu now, I suppose. Of course, right off the bat, we have the option to go straight to Godric with the main gate, which predictably doesn't pose an issue for this challenge, but opted to take the long way, since that's more interesting. Worst case, we can always turn back and take the main gate at any point, but given this is possibly the best designed level in the game, I'm not too concerned we'll be in trouble. No matter how far down you travel in this level, you'll always have some method to make your way back up and loop back around to another part of the level. And the shortcuts between some of the areas actually come in handy for once. And it's moments like these that make me sad that fast travel is just a standard part of the series after Dark Souls 1. A lot of FromSoft's top tier level design doesn't get its time to shine when you can just warp between graces. And even doubly so when you just open the map to do so, instead of needing to sit on the grace. As for any struggles on my gameplay, I kinda forgot that I can't fast travel and went to the main gate graces and got on a hairy spot trying to go back due to the ballistas giving me a hard time, with 10k plus runes on the stain. I tried to use the hand ballista and shooting the guys, but wasn't working out for me. Look at how stupid this range they have, jeez. But I managed to get around and kill them, then grabbing my runes. Now for Godric, well, I personally struggled with him even less than Margit, so you can probably guess how it went. From there I did open the door to make sure I could loop back from Liurnia later, as you do have to make a drop when reaching Liurnia straight from Limgrave. Which kinda means you have to kill Godric and open this door if you ever want to return to Limgrave. But I did go backwards to activate Godric's Great Rune while I'm here. It'll definitely be very useful. Oh, right. Fuck. Well, it would have been useful. Anyway, on to Liurnia, my favorite. The very first thing I did in Liurnia is start heading towards a certain NPC. Along the way, I did get the map fragments. These are even more important than normal, as you'd expect, even if you can't use the graces. I did get the academy key while I was passing by. Obviously, that's already a moment of backtracking applied into the game itself, the only difference being that you're most likely to already have the grace near Raya Lucaria and can just work back normally, if you're not a psychopath like me. I also passed by the 4 belfries during my journey, and it did make me realize that all the portals there would be a dud. They all lead to other existing areas in the world, but they don't connect to those levels properly. So aside from abusing death respawns, you can make your way back, which I won't be doing, as I said at the beginning of the video. After getting the last Liurnia map fragment, I finally arrived at the NPC I was looking for, Iji. If you predicted earlier that I'll be using him to upgrade my weapons further, then congrats, because yeah, he's your only alternate way to upgrade a weapon without going to the round table hold. For now, I can only buy the 3rd and 4th Somber Stones from him, so +4 is what we're staying at until next time I come around with more upgrade materials. As you can probably guess then, the name of the game for this run is finding upgrade materials as optimally as possible along our path. Since I'm already all the way up here in the map, I did decide to do Carrion Manor. Despite being a minor dungeon, this one is also very well designed. It's a bit linear, but a lot of the off-beaten paths loop back around very naturally, so it's quite fun exploring this area with this challenge in mind, though you will need to make your way back up on foot. That does give me a chance to talk about something though. Earlier I mentioned how not fast traveling allows for level design to shine a bit more than usual, more like in a Dark Souls 1 type of way. Well, that's not the only thing that feels like Dark Souls 1 due to this. Whenever you remove the option of fast travel, there's another calculation you have to make as you play. If you know you're going to have to loop back to areas you already traversed before, you have to consider whether you should rest at the next grace or not. For instance, I took the time to kill a lot of the hand enemies in the lowermost floor of Carrion Manor, enemies which are definitely very deadly when fought with as little health as I currently have. Then I went up to the next grace. I could have rested, but I opted not to, because I do know this level loops around a fair amount. So then when I was going to make the jump down to the Sword of Night and Flame, I could do so comfortably, because I knew I would get looped back and wouldn't have to worry about the enemies again. If I had the option to fast travel, I imagine most people would have just done that. The enemies I had to kill on the upper layer after the grace are far easier to deal with than the hands. But in my case I didn't, and I made it back to the grace in less than 30 seconds, and without a load screen. This is just happenstance, perhaps conditioned by Dark Souls 1 gameplay loop, but I already tend to play that way a lot of the time. If I'm playing purely casually, without intending to speedrun past an area or whatever, I like to kill all the enemies in a dungeon in Souls games, sometimes in the overworld too. And ideally, I don't rest to keep those enemies dead if I want to explore this area more freely if I manage to not die. And for once, this challenge run is somewhat coincidentally rewarding me for playing like that. There weren't any in this particular level, but this will also give much more value to the scarabs that refill your flasks. Because not resting can sometimes be advantageous, I imagine coming across those would be much more of a relief than it would be normally if you're running low on resources. And when playing more carefully and slowly is encouraged with limitations like that, even elements that were only added recently, like stealth or circumventing enemies, can be even more encouraged than it is when you are just taking a trial and error approach. I do want to make it clear that I do like Elden Ring well enough as it is now, but I hope this gives some food for thought as to some downsides of making these types of games with the ability to fast travel all the time. Sure, it can be more stressful, but I would argue that alone allows for a much more immersive experience. You're much more in your character's shoes and gives much more room for clever level design and fine-tuning of elements like enemy and resource placement to shine. Things like more organic shortcuts would certainly be appreciated more than just graces as well. It actually even inspired me to use a shield for actually blocking from time to time. Were you surprised by the ramble just now? Trust me, so was I. As I said, I'm writing the script as I play, and I didn't exactly plan for this run to induce so much talk about game design, but I got into that particular stream of consciousness and just let it flow. But yeah, I killed Loretta pretty easily, plus 4 Fang is pretty strong. From there I did talk to Ronnie and all that to initiate the quest. At this point in time I don't know if we'll be able to follow through with her quest, but might as well, as I'm here. As established, it'll be some time before we'll get back here again. After that, I went to Pedia to get a few things, and from there I took advantage of the level design to get out of here from the front entrance, of course. From there I got one of the sacred tears along the way, and then I made my way to Raya Lucaria. Now Raya Lucaria is almost the exact opposite of Carrion Manor, despite being a more important dungeon technically. The whole level is incredibly linear with little to note. And I don't just mean for this run, just in general as a level. It's not very interesting. But it certainly doesn't have any impact on how you traverse in this run, outside of just having to backtrack on the way you came from. there's a few paths that loop back on themselves, but not nearly as impressive as some prior examples, so we're just gonna move on. Neither the Red Wolf nor Renala gave me trouble. I did get this cool kill on the Moon Knight though. Surprisingly, despite how big Liurnia is, the only area which you can backtrack from is Lakeside Crystal Cave. This is the level that leads you to Latenna, and as you can remember, it has plenty of drop downs and seemingly no way to get back up, even looking at the area layout. There's a grace near Latenna, so that's probably a big reason why they felt comfortable doing this here. They figured if you hadn't gotten the Haligtree medallion to gain her trust, they should place a grace next to it so you can return at any time once you do. Fine reasoning for the game, but it does stop us from being able to get Latenna's help, or the Cerulean Talisman from the Bloodhound Knight. From here we're gonna make our way back to Caelid and Dragon's Barrow, so backtracking through Limgrave it is. I went through Stoneville backwards again, which was scarier than expected even though I had 30 vigor at this point, with the ballistas. Again. I guess another pro, relatively speaking, of this run, environmental traps like this get more chance to shine. I'm gonna call Caelid and Dragon's Barrow the upgrade material regions, because upon researching, I can get a Somber 5, a Somber 6, a Somber 8, and 9 in those regions. As you may have noticed, that does miss out on the 7th one, but that's okay. I already know which 7 I want to get a little later on, and it won't be the worst detour. The Somber 5 is in this little ravine area, one that doubtlessly you forgot about by now. It's such a minor little crevice of the map, but it's a pretty easy Somber 5 in Caelid. The Somber 6 is not too far away. It's in Celia Crystal Tunnel. We have to beat the Falling Star Beast and the... Oh. Okay, yeah, there's a ladder that leads back here. Genuinely had a heart sink when I remembered this jump. But nah, yeah, we kill the Falling Star Beast, didn't give me much trouble, and it gets us to Somber 6. And that's it. There's not anything else I want from Caelid. We'll get to Dragon's Barrow in a little bit. So let's make our way to Radahn then. I appreciate Redmane Castle a little bit more after doing this run. It has a few more flaws than Carrion Manor, which I'll get to in a bit, but I've been surprised how much the minor legacy dungeons have been growing on me this time around. The neat thing about this particular dungeon is that it does have at least the one Crimson Scarab to refill flasks, which will be needed after fighting these 2 Lion Guardians, or maybe before. As for the few shortcomings, well, the only grace in this area is essentially at the end of the level. So if you wanted to play this level more casually, but maybe are a little under leveled, you'll be having to run all the way back from before the bridge. It wasn't an issue here for me, but I recall it being an annoyance in a Tunter's Tongue run I did a while back, where I wasn't using Torrent much since I was ideally doing multiplayer. Even if there wasn't another grace, they could at the very least allow you to open the main gate. You can't open it, right? But yeah, the only other shortcut is behind the castle, and it doesn't really help much. You can almost just as easily go up this ladder and drop down from up there, and you've made just as much progress. And once again, these aren't just for this run. There are genuine issues with the level itself, but at the very least it's not the longest, and you can speedrun it to the fog gate pretty quickly. Anyway, the dual boss here, it didn't give me much trouble. Look at this misbegotten kill though. Yes, I will keep subjecting you to flashy moves whenever I can. But now onto the Radahn Festival. Oh, it hasn't started yet? Okay, fine, wake me up when it has. Oh, it's gonna be a little while? Fine, let me ask AG if he wants to party. What? You don't want to party? Just take Blythe with me. Well, you're boring. But fine, I will. Okay, finally. That took a while, but you can finally wish Radahn a happy birthday. Yeah, Jaren, I get it. Let's just... Oh. Yeah. Well, I would be allowed to take the portal there. There's no portal on the way back after the fight. So our only obstacle is this short river length gap. Thanks, Miyazaki. I even ran around the western edge of the mountain to double check that there's no subtle means of getting out of here. And there doesn't seem to be. Much less in the War Dead Catacombs. We normally could take the blue light, or even just die somewhere in the dunes to abuse the Stick of America, but both of those were clearly stated in the beginning as against the rules. So for the first time in the video, a major part of the story is completely blocked off from us. And by proxy, this will already mean we can't do Ronnie's questline, anything that's blocked off by that, like Moonlight Altar entirely. But we'll discuss the relevance of some of those as they come. I didn't get to fight Radahn, how awful. So yeah, we head back up the elevator, and just get out of Redmane. Why are you like this, Jaren? Well, taking a death here wouldn't break the rules, because it's not being used to cross a path that wouldn't be possible otherwise. So whatever, let's just drop into the ocean and... Oh. Oh no. This is actually a problem. Okay, maybe dying as if we were fighting Radon would do it, right? Okay. Let's stay calm. I'm sure there's a way out. Maybe through here? No? How about here? Oh, the time. It forces it to be nighttime. Maybe I can pass until morning. Wait, I can't change the time? And time doesn't pass? Are you serious? Ugh, why did I rest at this grace? How about if I clip to the fog gate with reloading? Or if I... Yeah, so I tried a handful of things, and there doesn't seem to be any way to get back out. As I said, if I had at least rested only at the grace before this, I could have maybe had reasonable grounds to use that grace to get back out. But alas. I even considered some glitches, but my options are limited since I don't have many tools. Unprepared for this and all. So what now? Well, it's not like I'm gonna fast travel. That's the crux of the run. So we're gonna continue on a new character. Here we go. Hey, look at the zigzag styling. Yeah, after restarting I needed runes, so I figured I'd take on a boss I thought I could kill this early on. Before going to Dragon's Barrow, I did go for the abandoned cave to get the gold scarab talisman for that reason. But what a surprise! The very first ledge can be backtracked. Great. So with that in mind, let's see what other Caelid levels can be traversed on foot. Minor Archery Catacombs makes it clear as early as Abandoned Cave. Right as you ride down the first elevator, you can see the floor below the elevator gap, but no way to get back up. Dual Watchdog boss that drops Mad Pumpkin Spirit Ashes. Gale Tunnel has a drop down without a clear way back up as well. Oh well, YOLO. This is the one that loops into Glimgrave, so there's a way out from the back. The same goes for Gale Cave, the one with Duelist that loops back to Limgrave and has the Regalia. So these two levels are levels you can get out of, despite appearances. And probably the only time these two dungeons have had that actually be a noteworthy feature of them, given, fast traveling. As I mentioned earlier, Warded Catacombs is in the dunes that is in Radon's arena, so we can't even make it there. Now moving on to Dragon's Barrow. Did you also forget that we were supposed to be getting upgrades? Because I did for a second there without the drama. So on the way to the Divine Tower, there's the Exploding Scarabs that give you the Somber 8, and then right below the grounds of the tower is the Somber 9. Meaning now we're only missing 7 and max level upgrades. If it isn't clear, I did pick up everything I needed on the way here, and now we're proceeding from where we left off. Excluding Radon Festival, obviously. Since I was nearby, I did check the Divine Tower to see if it's traversable, though not that we could activate the Great Rune or anything. The climb is mostly upward, so I wasn't concerned about the return there, but the journey to the basement is what I was interested in. So obviously since you're going to a basement, you're mostly descending, even with crumbling floors, which normally would be a bad sign for us, but there is a ladder and a few elevators too, so it seemed feasible. Now when you reach the shortcut elevator, and the ladder, and open the door, it did seem safe, but from there I didn't see any clear way to get back up. I kinda forgot how this was laid out, so I loaded up another character to check, and yeah, sure enough, you have to commit with a second crumbling bridge. So that means the Godskin Apostle, and the Godslayer Greatsword and stuff is off limits. From there I did go to get the Radagon Sword Seal, and to kill Grail for the runes. Lord knows I need them more than before. And also took the time to kill other decently easy bosses in the area. But from there that's it for Dragon's Barrow. There's not many locations at all, much less dungeons. But one of the only ones, Dragon's Barrow Cave, is yet another one where you can't backtrack, due to a dropdown. You can still get the Bull Gold Talisman before the dropdown, but you do miss out on the Dual Farum Beast boss, and the Flame Drake Talisman +2. It does seem like caves are the main ones that don't allow for this most often. That's it for the ones you can backtrack, though I should mention you can't get the Dragon's Crest Shield Talisman below the Bestial Sanctum, because it's only dropdowns. Now after, catching up, I went ahead and made my way to Alta's Plateau. You can take the Ravine Dungeon path of course, and you can backtrack through it just fine. Maybe I'll take it when I have to return at some point, but I did collect the medallion so I took that instead. Now we're actually going to skip this for now and make a beeline to Mount Gilmer, because that's where we'll be getting our +7, allowing us to get all the way to +9 without having to backtrack too much. I made my way there by the closest path, the Seathwater River. Not much happened on the way. Mount Gilmer is a small area, it loops in on itself very well. I did have this happen as I was passing the Demi-Human Queen though. I don't know, that got a laugh out of me. The Somber 7 we need is deep in Volcano Manor, so let's head straight there. And we could take the chance to do Rykard of course. The somber I need is right there. It's visible right from the beginning of the dungeon. And there used to be a skip you could do to get it at least once you hit the shortcut, but I'm pretty sure it's been patched by now. So we'll have to explore nearly the whole place. As we traverse the level, it's maybe not as impressive as Stormveil, but it somewhat shines a little bit even with fast traveling, because it only has 2 graces, one of them being unnecessary, and the whole level has a lot of loops and shortcuts, even as you make drops that maybe normally would make you want to warp out. They just loop nicely back to graces. Now the one unnecessary grace shows up after Godskin Noble, which has more or less become a standard after Bloodborne, where a boss death will spawn a checkpoint, regardless of how embarrassingly close it is to a previous or later grace. As much as it is a minor detail, I definitely wish it had cut that out. Now after killing the Noble, we're taking the shortcut. I said we're taking the shortcut. We're taking a shortcut in order to get to the Somber 7 now, where we have to drop down a bunch of platforms. And right here's where you get the Somber 7. And as you can see, it loops back naturally to the level. There's also a second shortcut that leads back into Volcano Manor proper, and it's somewhat like this one too. But this one more so suffers from warping being available, because assuming you're still making your way through the dungeon, you probably just warp back from here, even though you can physically make it back on foot to where you were in a minute or so. So there's still moments where no fast traveling would be nice. Alright, now that we have that, let's make our way to Rika. Oh, son of a bitch. Right, so once again, a warp panel is what will take us to a part of the level that is physically unable to be reached otherwise, making it impossible for us to reach Rykard without being stuck there. Which also means Serpent Hunter is out of reach too, which would be a handy weapon. Given Radahn is also unavailable, this also means that the only Great Runes you can get to open up Leyndell is Godric's and Renalis. Right, so we'll be leaving the Volcano Manor now, and I guess it's a good opportunity to take that Volcano Manor shortcut, and from there look at the dungeons that can be backtracked through in Mount Gilmer. I'm probably the only person on Earth who's used this shortcut in any significant way. Seathwater Cave instantly has a small ledge that I'm pretty sure you can't jump out of normally. You'll miss the Kindred of Rot dual boss and the Exaltation Talisman. I thought Volcano Cave was going to be another case since I remember there being a few drops, but nah, there's a clear path backwards. So that's it. For now I'm quickly going to backtrack to Liurnia to upgrade my weapon to +9, and then we'll be going to Altus Plateau and Leyndell proper. Going back to Altus, I did take the ruin-strewn precipice just to clear it out if I want to take that path for the last trip for max level weapons eventually, as the magma worm is in the way normally. It's a very linear level, so undoubtedly not an issue for this run, and even has a rare second grace in the middle. Now I don't really have anything I want in Altus or Capital Outskirts, so let's do it in reverse order now, and look at the levels you can't backtrack through before Leyndell itself. There wasn't any in Altus Plateau. The Saint of Heroes grave had me a little nervous because of the crumbling floor right here. I don't recall any way to get back up, but when checking in on the different character, there is. Just going up with one of these saws loops back above the crumbling floor. But for the Royal Outskirts, the sealed tunnel is not backtrackable. And for the funniest reason so far, there's this tree root covering your path to continue halfway-ish into the dungeon. And you can either go down this hole on the side or over the roots. But once you do, you actually can't go back. There is a Stake of Marika right before it, so the devs did account for this, but as stated in the beginning, I'm not allowing myself to abuse these to backtrack from somewhere that should be impossible on foot. Even if these routes weren't here, it doesn't matter much. There's a segment later where you drop down with no way back up anyway, so maybe that's part of the reason why they did this too. But it does mean you miss out on the Onyx Lord Greatsword from Onyx Lord and the Divine Tower here, but we already couldn't get Rykard's Great Rune anyway, so we didn't lose anything there thankfully. Now if earlier the Saint of Heroes grave made me nervous, the Alriza side 2 made me shudder. This is the one where you need to take the transporter chests. Now the boss door is right after the Grace, like most catacombs, so once you clear the dungeon you're not locked in here, unable to backtrack. You can make it out of here afterwards. I would treat these chests similar as warp panels, in that while they are a warp, they're only to very specific spots, so it's not really fast travel in a sense, or at least in this case it's not used as fast travel. That's not even to mention that you physically can't fast travel until you kill the boss anyway. So I think by any metric you look at it, this dungeon is clear for a no fast travel run. It's not a mandatory dungeon by any stretch, so it doesn't stop the game from being bean anyway, so I didn't even bother for this character. But that's it for Royal Capital, so I went ahead and killed Draconic Tree Sentinel, and then we can head into the... Is that the fucking Great Rune Fog? Yeah, so when I got here in my playthrough, despite having 2 different Great Runes, the Fog Gate was still there, leaving me utterly confused. My first fear was that Rulez wasn't counting, and I did need to kill Radahn or Rykard. But then I realized I was ridiculous because I'm positive Rulez does count for progression here. After some thought, my second guess was that maybe I did need to have Melina take me to the Round Table Hold, as this blockade is talked about by the Two Fingers Gnoll, which I already knew you didn't need to talk to them. I've skipped talking to them in Enya dozens of times, but perhaps the flag of at least entering the Round Table was necessary for this fog gate to disappear. Frustrating and dull if so, but nonetheless I went investigating. I started a separate character and basically speedrun my way there. I got a lot of upgrade materials for the Samurai Uchi Katana, killed Godric and then Renala pretty easily. I had a +8 weapon I believe, and 40 vigor. Draconic Tree Sentinels still gave me some trouble, mostly because my flasks were underpowered from next to no sacred tiers. But after like 20 minutes I finally got it. The fog gate was still there as expected, so I tested my working theory that a trip to the Round Table Hold was needed on top of the 2 Great Runes. And lo and behold, that cleared the fog gate. Fuck! If I had to guess why it works like this, it'd be because of how Melina is directly part of the storyline by giving you the medallion to reach the mountaintops. And for some reason, the Round Table Hold is tied to that plot, which definitely comes across as a little rushed when put in this new light especially. It's also possible that they don't want you to be locked out of the Round Table Hold once Melina burns herself later, or even if you attempt to do the Frenzied Flame quest, which could be very soon. But if that's the case, I'd say it's far more sloppy that Melina is locked behind resting at only 3 graces in the game. That answers the question though, doesn't it? Warping to the Round Table Hold is allowed, but warping back is clearly fast traveling. So I guess you really can't beat Elden Ring without fast traveling. But we're gonna continue anyway. Not like answering the question has to stop the video here. Plus I still want to document which individual regions and dungeons can be backtracked through and all that. As a compromise, when I warp to the Round Table, instead of resting or fast traveling via the map, I use the Memory of Grace item. I never touch the Grace there. And obviously won't be using the Round Table at all for the rest of the run. And on top of that, I also discarded all the pocket runes I had at the time, including remembrances, as a punishment of sorts. But yeah, screw Miyazaki. Let's continue into Lindo now. Lindo Capital is definitely in the top 3 dungeons in the game. It's not as open as Stormville Castle, but it does have a lot of details in the map that loops back on themselves very naturally. So in some ways it feels just as good. It's just that opposed to Stormville, there's more of a predetermined path that you have to go through, with only a few variations. So it does feel more linear ultimately. There is a dropdown after Grand Sax, where you can't retrace your steps, but you do open a door later that allows you to go back to the first half of the level eventually. I tried my best to play this level as I did Carry Manor, and not rest at any grace, and I tried playing Deathless in order to appreciate this area even more than I already do, and I did. If you haven't tried playing like this before on any of the games, I would recommend it. It definitely is somewhat satisfying being able to traverse the level and explore freely having already killed all the enemies here. Though it does require a much more defensive and slow playstyle than maybe Elden Ring and a lot of the more recent games encourage, not to mention the over reliance on graces and such. But as stated, this level allows for pretty good backtracking even without warping. I mean, you even have to physically walk out of here to make your way to the mountaintops too, so it'd be pretty obvious that this area would be traversable like that. I will say that the lack of Crimson Scarabs in this level does hurt that uninterrupted gameplay style a little bit. At a certain point, I inevitably ran out of flasks, and was relying on the Icon Shield I picked up in Altus to regen. I guess I should mention that Crimson Scarabs are a decent way to refill flasks, but probably not the best way either. I do think the way that you get fast recharges in the open world is better overall, because it does put you at risk of dying still when fighting enemies, and once you kill enough you get rewarded for that, being a higher risk, higher reward. Whereas Crimson Scarabs are just silly little enemies that aren't dangerous to deal with at all. They don't put them near ledges 99% of the time as far as I recall, and you could even respawn them by quitting out like Crystal Lizards in most of the other games. But nevertheless, I do find the group of enemy kill recharges to be better overall. I suspect they added that to the open world to encourage more uninterrupted gameplay time, especially while doing multiplayer. But even if they were tuned slightly to be more rare, I do think it would have been a good fit for bigger dungeons like this one as well, to not have to have just mindless, passive regenerating items, and just sitting around waiting to get your health back. Imagine that's why a lot of people like the Rykard gear that heals as you kill enemies, but I'm pretty sure all of those are locked out from me. Rykard's great and definitely would be lovely about now. Maybe I'll make the time to get the Rykard's cameo later. But for that same reason, I did make a beeline to the Blessed Dew Talisman as soon as I could. Taking the transporter chest would have been fine, but then you physically can't make it out of here, so I wouldn't have had a way back out. The warp panel to Melina's Great Rune Tower is in a similar spot, as it's literally in the middle of the sea, but we'll discuss more about that later on. Well, I did mention the open world enemy flask recharges earlier. Since you can't theoretically just be running around the world without needing to kill enemies, sometimes just a small passive healing item like the talisman isn't a bad fit, so I almost found the system work backwards as it should. Friendly reminder that there still are Crimson Scarabs in the open world, many more than in dungeons, so perhaps we could have had the enemy recharge in dungeons, where we are more likely and encouraged to fight all enemies, and only Scarabs in the overworld. Or maybe they could have had more open world survival game mechanics that could achieve some passive bonuses at a camp or something. There's definitely a lot of missed potential in this game. I managed to go deathless all the way until this friggin' Lindell Knight right here, the one that drops a gravel seal. And while frustrating as it was, I basically had already taken advantage of most of the level connectivity by this point. So I just grabbed the last few things I needed and then went to Godfrey, which wasn't much trouble, but I did find it funny how we both kept whiffing each other. Then Morgoth Robbie did kill me once, then on the second attempt, I killed him before he could even fully initiate phase 2. I didn't set out a grace to level at any point until now, purely out of spite towards Melina. So she didn't talk to me since the round table hold thing until now. And then from there, before going to the mountaintops, I decided to explore the subterranean shunning grounds. The reason I say explore is because I truly didn't know if this area is 100% backtrackable or if I'm going to be stumped at some point. So let's find out together. The main reason I'm unsure is because of how many drops there are. Looking at the optional areas, including the entire Lindell catacombs, thankfully you'll have a way to make your way back up, by elevators or stairs and stuff like that. But as to the main area, right away there's a drop down with no ladder, but I was already aware of the main shortcut, so I knew I'd be able to loop back at least, even with this drop right here. The second half of the pipe system is what I wasn't sure about, but once I did see and remember this door, I was a little more relaxed. This door doesn't come in handy normally due to the usual suspects I've talked about all video, but it leads to a good way to backtrack if you want or need to from here. From there, there's the elevator that goes to Fake Smell, so safe to say all the shunning guards are safe for this run. Now after this, we have the Frenzy Flame drop down. Okay, so before we make any commitments, let's look at what's ahead of us on a different character. You do commit by dropping down, as you can make your way back up after a certain point. After that, we have the hidden wall that leads to deeper depths, our first underground area we've covered. Even here you commit by dropping down, but admittedly, every path that leads to the depths is unable to be returned to. You either drop down from the shunning grounds, or you take the coffin from the Valiant Gargoyle's boss room, and both lock you from being able to return without fast travel. From there are two paths you can take. You can take another coffin that leads to the upper segment of Ainsel River, one that was inaccessible otherwise in our run actually, because it requires Rhaenys questline, and we can't do that without Radon. The other path you can take is beating Thea's champions. There's a warp panel that leads you to the beginning of Lindell Capital, though I couldn't show it in this character since I'm already at the Ashen Capital in this one. Both of these paths are perfectly safe for our runs, so it does mean that dropping down to the Frenzy Flame area isn't a death sentence for us. Now since we mentioned the alternate way into Lindell just now, naturally, I've been curious if this would have allowed us to bypass the Round Table Warp earlier, even though I suspect that not, since you get the same prompt about the Great Runes in normal gameplay. But against my better judgment, I decided to do another mock run. So I started another character, be Rennala and Radon, so I could go into the crater, go through Mimic Tier, and then eventually Valiant Gargoyles, which I swear to God pissed me off even more every time I refight them. But I did get through them after a while. Beat the Thea's champions, in the same circumstances as the Yellow Fog, 2 Great Runes acquired, but having not traveled to the Round Table Hold. And just like before, the portal wasn't functioning. I went ahead and warped to the Round Table, then came back, and just the same, the portal is now open. So basically, outside of glitches, which is certainly fun and all, but they keep getting patched out, there's no natural way to progress through the game into Lindell without warping to the Round Table at least once. Why are you like this, sir? I should mention Thea's champions are reachable normally, but due to the Ronnie quest inaccessibility, we can't do Fortisex. So anyway, which path will I take after the deeper depths? Lindell or Ainsel? Well, I decided to go into Ainsel. Ainsel? Yeah, I'm gonna do both at the same time. Well, I decided to go into Ainsel for my proper run character. For the purposes of this run, I'll definitely always prioritize the more organic path over the random ass warp panel. So going into the coffin and flowing into Ainsel sounded more appealing altogether. I also have a hidden motive for taking this path, but I'll get to that later. For now, let's look around Ainsel River and see if anything is inaccessible. So there's not much to comment on with the upper segment of Ainsel. You normally have to run through here on foot anyway, can't even use the horse, to make your way to the Lake of Rot. This area in itself is infamously very flat, so doubtless there's nothing to worry about here, as long as you have the means to get through. And then... oh... yeah, so after reaching the Grind Cloister, we're instantly in a bind because there's a bunch of drop downs with no way to get back up. Honestly, this is the first safeguard of 3. If you recall, you take a coffin on the way down to Astel, so that would be another way to return cut off from us. And even if it wasn't, we need Ranni's ring to be able to get through the gate to reach Moonlight Altar. So because of Verdun, that's cut us from us too. Either way, from Moonlight Altar, there's also no way to get back below to Liurnia. So even if we did have Ranni's ring, we'd be stuck there anyway. So what now? Well, thankfully for us, if we make it back to the Lake of Rot, and most of the way through Upper Ainsel, if we go into this cave where this T-posing guy is, we can drop down to the lower segment of Ainsel. This is where we find the Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella. But backtracking through here safely leads us back to Liurnia via this elevator, which to my surprise, was waiting for us down here. Actually, this was my secondary reason I alluded to for going into Ainsel, so I could neatly make my way back to Liurnia, and thus return to Limgrave briefly. Unfortunately, I don't have a max level Sombra yet, so I can't take advantage of this trip for that. But earlier I kinda talked myself into doing Volcano Manor assassinations for the Taker's cameo, since it'd probably be very useful for this run. So as much as it would be a pain running back and forth to the manor and the assassinations quests, I think it'll be worth it. Maybe. Check back with me in 15 minutes. Before that though, also took a small detour to check out Shifa River, since I'm in Limgrave already. As I've noted a million times by now, being unable to do Radon blocks us from being able to do the Upper Shifa River and Nokron, meaning Regal Ancestor Spirit and the Valiant Gargoyles aren't available to us. But even going down here into Lower Shifa River, we can traverse all of it just fine. But recall what happens when you get all the flames for the normal Ancestor Spirit? Yeah, we get warped. And the only way out is the blue light. So even this one is inaccessible to us. We could do the Great Jar stuff, but I don't need the talisman, so this kinda means I came here for nothing. Oops. Anyway, I did the Limgrave assassination, went back to the manor, then went to the path near Shaded Castle, thankfully not as painfully far away, back to the manor, and then finally made my way back to Leyndell in order to go to the mountaintop of the Giants. On the way there is a Divine Tower for Morgoth's Great Rune. The only obstacle between us and that is the Fell Twins, which although does have some warping going on, the whole tower bridge and everything is connected physically. So this will be the first Great Rune we'll be able to activate. Possibly the only one. Once actually at the mountaintops, I made a beeline to the invasion that would reward me with the Taker's cameo, and I was going to immediately go back to Volcano Manor for it, so I can take advantage of it as much as possible, but I decided to switch up how I've been exploring so far. Instead, I next went to Castle Sol in order to get a second Halictree Medallion, and then go to the Consecrated Snowfield, get the earliest Ancient Somberstone there, and only then backtrack to Volcano Manor and Liurnia, to never have to see that fucking area again. Now since I've been taking the time to talk about some of the minor legacy dungeons, maybe I have something to say about Castle Sol, right? At least not much positive. It's definitely among the most repetitive and samey dungeons, to the point where even now, having been here dozens of times, I still sometimes get confused where I am when I don't speed onto the boss. And that's a big part of it too. There's almost nothing of value outside of the path to the boss. There's the Cerulean +1, which is not that impressive of a talisman in a normal run, certainly not to take up one of 4 spots, or 3 in my case. Hell, even the reward at the end of this dungeon is just a key to another location. Think of it this way, if one half of the key to the snowfield wasn't here, would you even bother with this dungeon? I suspect it'd be as skippable as Castle Morn is now. Outside of that, it's also somewhat lacking in enemies, so it's not even that engaging. I do think Commander Nile is a better boss than O'Neill, at the very least, but also be hard pressed to come fight him just for the sheer fun of it. So all in all, this dungeon is already a bit lacking, and the no fast travel doesn't make any unseen parts shiny or anything. I've always found it pretty bland, and this run doesn't change that. So now that I have the medallion, I made my way to the Consecrated Snowfields, and swiftly made a mad dash for the Frozen River in order to get to Anastasia, as she's the one that drops the Ancient Somberstone. Ironically, this was my first max level Somberstone in my first playthrough too, and I was using the Meteoric Ore Blade, so it was a pleasant surprise. From there, since this is a small region, I decided to get the no backtrack checklist going, although there was only one. The Cave of the Forlorn has major drop downs, but even the first one makes it impossible to go back, at least eventually. You can make some jumps to get back at first, but once you come to this drop here, you're stuck there. Interestingly, the Stake of America puts you back down there with the red jellyfish, so even that will keep you stuck, meaning you have to die and use the Grace Warp to get out. The boss is the Mesbegon Crusader, and locks out the Golden Order Greatsword. Now finally for this area, I'm sure there's 2 little details that you're wondering about, and if you've thought ahead during the video, maybe you've already come to the realization of what I'm about to discuss. Both Mogwim Palace and Mikola's Haligtree are completely out of the table for this run, or at the very least would be locked in there, meaning Moog and Melania are inaccessible. Both require you to take a war panel, which will be fine, but just like Radahn, we have no means of getting back without fast traveling. Why do all the Mikola related things have this issue? Maybe it was foreshadowing all along. Now perhaps this is a little bit disappointing to you, but in fairness, both levels are perfectly traversable forwards and backwards all the way through. More impressive in the Haligtree, where it would be nice to use that one shortcut that otherwise never has any purpose with fast travel, and an already good, albeit very linear level. But hey, maybe they'll give you a chance to play around with the fast travel limitation. Next time you're in Haligtree, instead of warping out after Melania, try backtracking all the way to the first grace of the whole level. And yes, for Melania, this isn't a combat or boss oriented challenge, as we stated in the beginning of the video, so I'm fine being locked off from her. It changes nothing for her actual fight. But as you can see, the fact that the Divine Tower for her rune is inaccessible didn't end up mattering. Not that I use it anyway. But yeah, now that we're done with the Consecrated Snowfield, we'll be making our final detour before continuing uninterrupted for the endgame. We make our way backwards to the Forbidden Lands, then through Leyndell, Altus Plateau, which I don't think the game liked that I was doing this because it crashed on the way. I reached Volcano Manor for the final reward, the Taker's Cameo. Then I made my way back to Liurnia, thankfully pretty north in the area, to Iji, to finally get my plus 10 Bloodhound Fang. Funnily enough, at exactly level 100 for some reason. Now after making my way back to the mountaintops, and after calling it that day, these long running segments are pretty exhausting, admittedly. We finally continue. For the rest of the mountaintops, there's actually not much to talk about. None of these areas are blocked from traversal, thankfully. But at the same time, as you probably know, it's a relatively bland and empty area, so there's not much interesting to discuss, especially since there's no proper legacy dungeon, and the minor one we already discussed. But at the very least, this is the only major map to not have any dungeon where you can't traverse backwards by foot, which is good. Not much to talk about Fire Giant, it was pretty easy, except he did fall on his ass. That was pretty amusing. But yeah, this is where Melania burnt herself. Goodbye, you fucking asshole. Now here's a dire place where you need to make a choice. Once you reach Farum Azula, you're stuck here until you finish. So for one, you have to make sure you have everything you need before you make it here. So that's another reason I got everything taken care of before this. Though obviously it doesn't lock progress for us. We're literally making our way to the end of the game. And secondly, you gotta make damn sure you get everything you want here before you leave. You'll have no way to get back here, I'm pretty sure. So you bet your butt we're gonna be exploring to Kingdom Come. And gladly, this is also a fantastic legacy dungeon. Funnily enough, there's a few drops right at the beginning of the dungeon, so make doubly sure you pick up those items before grabbing the graces a little further in. I'll also be trying to go deathless here, just for the hell of it, for the last proper dungeon in the game. And I failed immediately. But after that, I'll keep trying. This level has more clever looping than you'd expect. It's just in a similar vein as Leyndell, where the fast traveling doesn't allow it to thrive. On top of the fact that it's also very linear, with not any separate paths that lead to the same place. Usually the loops are just optional paths that lead back to the prior area, which is good level design for sure. It's just not that useful in a normal run, and has limited value even in this run. I figure I'd spotlight it anyway. I do still enjoy this level a lot, I just don't have much to add than what I've said prior, but there's still a few other things to talk about. I did end up dying a lot before making it to Godskin Duo, and even shortly after. There is a lot of annoying enemies in this level. These giant skeleton dog guys with a ton of poise are up there as one of my low-key least favorite enemies, and they keep vindicating that for me in this run. Godskin Duo itself didn't have much to discuss. It went fine as well. The only thing I want to discuss before the end of this level is that there is a little known feature that's not on the game anymore. In the 1.0 version of this game, there's an enemy above this area that casts lightning on you as you traverse it, which is certainly more interesting than how it is now. But I'd have to play that version to make it work like that. I theorize that at some point, they nerfed the range for this kind of enemy, because there are some later that shoot you for far longer than they have any right to, but they never went back to touch up this specific encounter. Now unfortunately, even though the rest of the level loops back in itself just fine, there is one caveat. We would be boned if we dropped down to Placido Sax. Of course, people already are very critical of this run back, and it is quite excessive, but besides that, you gotta commit once you go down there, which obviously we can't do in this run. Not only do we have to drop down with no way back up, We also get taken on a trip through time, so we would also be stuck in the past. So I guess if you want to end your run in a choke place and replace the passive dragon, have fun. From there, before Malekith, I did explore every little thing in this area, and for some reason Bernal didn't invade, which makes sense questline wise, but I guess I can't get the parry thing for Malekith. Which oh well, we don't need it during or after the fight. Beast Clergyman give me more trouble than Malekith, as it tends to. I just get lazy with that face since I don't like it very much. But after that, Malekith wasn't much problem. And after that, back to Leyndell we go. From there, right off the bat, in case you're unaware, you can physically leave Ashen Capital. Even though the graces are reset, you can go back to the East Capital Rampart and grab it, and backtrack from there outside to the outskirts, just fine. So you're not locked in the endgame here. You can go back and do other things now if needed.
I knew you'd come to stand before the Elden Ring, to become Elden Lord.
I don't even know who you are. Anyway, after taking care of this stranger, we're on to Godfrey. He killed me once, and we kept with each other again. Some things never change, huh? After that, I didn't stagger Radagon as much as I would have liked, and I didn't proc freeze even once with this buff, but I got him first attempt. Then Elder Beast I'd staggered one time, which was once more than I expected to, but I got them as well. Of course, we are stuck here inside the archery, but all we gotta do is mend the Grey Rune and we'll be done. Wait, become Lord of Frenzied Flame. Fools. After reaching Ashen Capital, I took the hole down to Subterranean Shunning Grounds and went knocking. Then made my way back to Leyndell. Unfortunately from Liurnia because Portal to Leyndell doesn't work. And now we're here. And because Melina burned herself, she can do nothing about it. Burn, dumb disconnected world. God damn it! So, would I recommend doing a playthrough like this for yourself? Well, unfortunately, as we found out, you can't do a pure no fast travel playthrough, which maybe you missed if you skipped ahead by being naughty. But if you're fine with that one instance, I would say next time you play the game, I would recommend you try doing some of the legacy dungeons, major or minor ones, without fast traveling. And better yet, if you can do it without resting, even better. Though it might require a much more defensive and passive playstyle. But maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised how much it changes the vibe. One that feels in some ways like the older games. If you recall my design rant back all the way in Carrier Manor, it made me realize how much is lost for an immersive experience when you can just cut out manually traveling between points so easily. I hesitate to say this, because I'm sure it's not intentional of the devs. It's just the nature of allowing for fast traveling right off the bat. Plus this game specifically is humongous. But it does result in a lot more lazy level design when you could just slap a travel point somewhere in the level. It cuts off the possibility of introducing way more organic and clever shortcuts. It removes tension from traversal in these games. There's no real decision making needed in a lot of situations. And if that wasn't the kind of game FromSoft was making, that'd be fine. I wouldn't expect something so thorough from other game franchises. But with the hindsight of Demon Souls and the original Dark Souls, we know FromSoft has the capability for some breathtaking level design, and you can tell they still try to capture that from time to time. But oftentimes it falls flat compared to those, simply due to the ease of access of fast traveling. And a run like this allows for occasional moments of that brilliance to shine once again. For the overall segment, unfortunately to some degree the world isn't built for it, and being so goddamn big, and sometimes having to return to certain places, does create a big hassle. As I said earlier, it is very exhausting at times. It can be a lot running around with no real engagement of the mechanics. So at best, maybe only do this when you're currently exploring and traversing the area, but when returning for upgrading or something, save yourself the hassle. If y'all do want to see this run done for the Shadow of the Earth Tree, do let me know. I can already foresee one area where this example can be showcased as a missed opportunity. Essentially when they were so close to capture that brilliance once more, but just missed it. And of course, I can do the rest of the Soulsborne games as well. They certainly wouldn't take nearly as long as this one.